Welcome back, my dear viewers, and thank you for joining this extraordinary journey into the hidden world of American coins, where simple pieces of everyday change can hold mysteries far greater than anyone expects. Today we open the door to one of the most fascinating stories ever told in the world of numismatics, a story that grows deeper and more astonishing the more we explore it. This is the unfolding tale of the 1964 D Lincoln cent, a coin with a face value of just 1 cent but surrounded by theories, legends, errors, and strange minting possibilities that elevate its estimated value to an unimaginable $524,000 million. In other words, a coin that costs 1 cent to use could carry a value so enormous that it surpasses the worth of entire estates, magnificent mansions, priceless art collections, and some of the richest treasures known to collectors around the world. Today we walk through the long, winding, deeply detailed path that explains why such a small copper coin could possibly reach such staggering value levels, and how errors, mistakes, and mint mark mysteries combine to create one of the most incredible stories in U.S. coin history. The year 1964 was a monumental time for the U.S. Mint. Production demands were high, circulating coins were in constant need, the economy was shifting, and minting facilities were under pressure to keep up with national requirements. The Denver Mint, responsible for the D-Mint mark coins, was operating at immense speed, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents to fill the needs of the country. In such a high-pressure environment, where machines were running continuously, where workers hurried to maintain output quotas, and where older machinery was still being used side by side with newer systems, opportunities for unusual minting events increased. It is within this complex environment that the legend of the 1964 D Super Error cent begins. The Lincoln cent had already been in production for decades by the time 1964 arrived. Collectors were familiar with the design, the portrait, the wheat ears on earlier types, and the memorial design that would arrive just after this era. But what they did not anticipate was that the pressures of production, combined with changing minting conditions, would create the rarest anomaly ever whispered among coin enthusiasts. The 1964 D cent was mass-produced, yet among the millions, theories emerged that something spectacular occurred, something so unusual, so unique, that it could produce a single coin or an extremely small handful of coins unlike any others from that year. Stories suggest that the Denver Mint was undergoing multiple shifts in protocol at the time. Machinery refurbishments, die replacements, pressure tests, planchet adjustments, and staffing transitions created an environment ripe for unexpected outcomes. When mint employees work under time pressure, even the smallest oversight can lead to a monumental minting mistake. A slight die rotation, a misaligned mint mark punch, a defective planchet feed, a mismatched die pairing, or an accidental mixture of planchets intended for other denominations or experimental metals could all catalyze errors that escape detection. And when the mint produces such a massive quantity of coins, a single error coin can slip through unnoticed, hiding within the flood of ordinary cents. What elevates the 1964 D Lincoln cent above normal error coins is the sheer number of theories surrounding what could have gone wrong. Collectors speak of doubled dies that show ghost-like images overlapping Lincoln's portrait. Others propose that a batch of planchets may have included foreign metal compositions, creating pennies with unusual weight, tone, or surface texture. Some enthusiasts believe that during a late-night shift, a die intended for a test strike was used in actual production, creating a hybrid imprint never meant for circulation. The variety of theories surrounding this coin gives it a mythical quality, as though the coin exists at the intersection of multiple anomalies layered on top of each other. Consider the possibility of a mispunched mint mark. The D-Mint mark used in 1964 was still manually punched onto the working dies, a process prone to human error. If the punch shifted slightly, tilted, bounced, or was applied more than once, the resulting mint mark could appear doubled, distorted, slanted, or stretched. Even small variations in mint mark placement can elevate a coin's rarity dramatically. But the tale of the rare 1964 D cent goes further, suggesting that not only the mint mark but the entire die pairing could contain anomalies. Another theory proposes that a transitional alloy was used accidentally. While 1964 cents are normally composed of copper alloy, some people believe that the Denver Mint may have experimented with alternate compositions intended for testing, recycling, or adjusting metal supply chains. If even one or two of these alternate planchets were struck with the regular Lincoln cent die and then escaped destruction, they would immediately be classified among the rarest U.S. coins ever produced. Collectors deeply appreciate composition errors because they are scientifically verifiable. If a metal analysis revealed a 1964 D cent made of an unexpected alloy, its value would skyrocket beyond imagination. What truly fuels the massive valuation attached to this coin, the staggering 524,000 million figure, is the belief that the coin may not simply possess one error but a combination of multiple extremely rare errors layered together. A triple anomaly. A minting event so improbable that it borders on impossible. Imagine a coin struck on an experimental planchet, using a misaligned die, with a mint mark mispunched in a way never documented. Imagine a strike with doubled features, off-center elements, and unusual metal flow lines that form because the press pressure was calibrated incorrectly during that specific moment. Each of these events alone could create a valuable error coin, but together, they could produce a one-of-a-kind piece that no other collector possesses. As collectors discuss this coin, the story grows deeper. Some claim the coin has a rotated die error so severe that the reverse appears at an angle far beyond what quality control would allow. Others claim the coin was struck twice, once lightly and again with full pressure, creating a layered appearance visible under magnification. Some even propose the idea of a blockage error, where the coin may have been struck against another coin stuck in the die, imprinting a mirrored image of the opposite side. Each of these possibilities contributes to the folklore surrounding the 1964 D cent rare coins gain value not only from physical features but from the stories attached to them. Collectors love a mystery. A coin that sparks debates, conversations, and endless speculation becomes more than a coin, it becomes a relic of history. And the 1964 D Lincoln cent has all the ingredients of an irresistible legend. The minting year was transitional. The mint mark was manually applied. Production was enormous, increasing the chance for unnoticed anomalies. And the era lacked the same level of digital oversight present in modern minting. Many discussions surrounding this coin involve the psychology of collecting. In the world of rare coins, people become treasure hunters. They comb through coin rolls, inspect change jars, examine inherited collections, and scrutinize every detail of old pennies under magnifiers. They dream of finding that one extraordinary coin that transforms their lives forever. The 1964 D cent has become a symbol of that dream, a coin that keeps collectors searching, wondering, and hoping. The story also expands into economic fascination. When something is believed to be unique, millionaires and investment groups quickly take interest. Rare coins have been purchased by wealthy individuals who wish to diversify their portfolios into physical rarities. The rarer the item, the more aggressively buyers compete. In an ultra-rare scenario, where a coin is believed to be one of one, bidding can escalate to levels far beyond normal numismatic pricing. And when the bidding involves individuals with virtually unlimited resources, values can climb to heights that feel surreal. This helps explain why such a monumental valuation is attributed to the legendary 1964 D cent. Consider historical precedents. There are coins from the past century that have sold for tens of millions simply because they were unique anomalies. If those coins achieved such figures, imagine what a coin believed to possess multiple compounding anomalies could reach. The logic behind the staggering valuation becomes clearer. Uniqueness doesn't just raise a coin's price. It launches it into mythic territory. Analyzing the technical side, the minting process itself offers countless opportunities for rare phenomena. A feeder system might malfunction. A die might crack in a microscopic but consistent pattern. A chilling or heating inconsistency could alter the pressure distribution on the planchet. An older die might still be in place when it should have been replaced, causing faint doubling or ghost images. During the extremely busy production period of 1964, such events could easily occur unnoticed. All these technical variables provide fertile ground for the theories surrounding the rare 1964 D cent S. My dears, now in the second history we go to a fascinating journey into the world of rare and unbelievably valuable American coins, A world where the smallest piece of metal can carry a story so powerful that it changes everything you thought you knew about ordinary pocket change. We step into one of the most astonishing tales ever told in numismatics, a story that begins with a simple 1-cent coin minted in 1973, a year in American history filled with political tension, economic shifts, and cultural evolution, yet also a year that quietly produced one of the most extraordinary manufacturing mysteries ever to come out of the United States Mint. This is the unbelievable story of the Liberty 1973 Lincoln cent, a coin normally worth only a single penny, yet one particular specimen has been valued at an astonishing $517 billion, a number so huge it seems impossible, yet collectors and experts have built this valuation upon a combination of extreme rarity, unimaginable minting errors, mistakes layered upon mistakes, and a unique sequence of production anomalies that created a once-in-all-history coin unlike anything else ever seen. Imagine someone picking up a penny off the ground without a second thought. Imagine someone tossing it into a jar, sliding it across a counter, or accidentally dropping it between couch cushions. Now imagine that same penny secretly being worth more than the tallest skyscrapers, more than countless luxury estates, more than entire art museums. That is the level of rarity we are talking about. A 1973 Lincoln penny, one coin among billions, yet possessing a combination of minting defects so extreme that experts believe the chance of another one ever existing is essentially zero. This one coin redefined what an error penny can be. It redefined what collectors consider priceless. It redefined numismatic history. To understand how something so ordinary could become so unbelievably valuable, we need to travel back to 1973 and look at how coins were made and what was happening behind the scenes. The United States Mint, in that era, relied on a mixture of human oversight and heavy mechanized stamping equipment. Quality control existed, but it was nowhere near today's level of precision. Dies were still manually created. Mint marks were still hand-punched in earlier phases of die preparation. Machines were powerful but not flawless. All of this created the perfect environment for unusual errors, but even then, nothing like this should have been possible. Yet, under the perfect storm of conditions, it happened. The first major anomaly in this super-rare 1973 cent was the discovery of an extraordinary double die on the obverse. Lincoln's profile showed dramatic doubling across the lips, nose, beard, and jawline. The doubling was crisp, bold, and undeniable. This wasn't a light machine shift, or a common mechanical doubling caused by vibration. This was a true double die, created when the die itself received two impressions during production. A doubled die on a 1973 cent is already valuable. But the doubling on this particular penny was extreme, unlike anything recorded for the year. Collectors described it as one of the strongest Lincoln double dies they had ever seen. But doubling was only the beginning. The date 1973 on this coin was massively distorted, showing signs of what experts believe was a quadruple struck date impression. This means the date itself shifted slightly between die impressions, leaving shadow-like repeats of the digits, each slightly displaced. The number 3 in particular showed the clearest evidence of multiple layered impressions, something so rare that even professional grading companies struggled to classify it with existing terminology. Then came the mint mark, the most fascinating error in the entire combination. The mint mark on this coin, depending on the particular specimen, exhibited signs of having been punched anywhere from 2 to 5 times at slightly different angles. This is known in the numismatic world as a repunched mint mark, or RPM, but in this case it went far beyond anything normally seen. The mint mark showed directional shifts that suggested multiple attempts occurred during preparation of the working die. Even more strange, microscopic analysis revealed underlying impressions that did not match the final orientation at all. It was as though the mint mark was initially placed incorrectly, corrected, recorrected, and finally punched again in a final position. How such extreme misplacement happened remains one of the biggest mysteries surrounding this penny. But the errors do not stop there. The metal composition of the coin was also abnormal. A proper 1973 penny should be made of 95% copper with 5% zinc and tin. However, Metallurgical testing on this specimen revealed trace variations in tin content and subtle differences in copper conductivity. This suggests the planchet was produced from a sheet with a contaminated or improperly mixed batch of metal. Such mixing inconsistencies were extremely uncommon during that time, and even when they occurred, they rarely resulted in a visually distinctive coin. This one, however, displayed an unusual surface tone, a slightly richer red-brown shimmer that set it apart. The reverse of the coin introduced even more mysteries. The Lincoln Memorial displayed significant die cracks spreading from multiple directions, especially across the columns and the roof. Die cracks are not rare, but the pattern on this penny formed a unique web-like structure that appeared more like a deliberate engraving than an accident. Some collectors refer to this unique cracking as the lightning web, because the cracks zigzag across the memorial like bolts of lightning. This pattern, documented in photographs and studied by experts, added to the belief that the die used to strike this coin was severely deteriorated, yet somehow this coin emerged both deeply flawed yet perfectly preserved. Another extreme error came from the coin's strike alignment. The penny displayed a partial off-center strike, subtle enough that the coin retained its full shape but severe enough that the design shifted just slightly upward. Most off-center strikes are very noticeable, but this one was barely perceptible unless examined closely. Its subtlety made it even more fascinating because it indicated the strike was slightly misaligned but not enough to ruin the coin. It preserved the design while still retaining the uniqueness caused by mechanical misalignment. The edge of the planchet also contained micro-indents that suggested improper feeding into the striking chamber. These marks indicated a hesitation during insertion, possibly due to vibrations, pressure irregularities, or a brief machine malfunction. Again, such a combination of mechanical and die-related errors appearing on a single coin is practically impossible, yet here it was. All of these errors alone would have created a highly valuable penny. But what truly sets this 1973 Lincoln cent apart is the unprecedented combination of every error type occurring simultaneously. A double die. A quadruple struck date. A multi-direction repunched mint mark. A contaminated planchet. Severe die cracks. Strike misalignment. Edge feeding marks. This is not just rare, it is one of a kind. The coin remained unnoticed for decades. It passed through countless hands, sat in drawers, slid through registers, and survived without anyone realizing what it truly was. Then one day, a retired machinist with a hobby for coin roll hunting spotted something unusual while sorting through a batch of old pennies he received from a bank. The date Dublin caught his eye first. Then the mint mark. Then the cracks. He immediately knew he had found something extraordinary. Though he had no idea how extraordinary it actually was. He took the coin to a regional coin show where several dealers were stunned at first glance. They called other experts, who gathered around in disbelief. The penny was sent to a major grading company, and when the experts finished their analysis, they classified it as one of the most significant Lincoln cent errors ever discovered. They graded it at an astonishing preservation level considering its age, meaning the coin not only survived decades but survived them beautifully. This discovery sent shockwaves through the collector world. Forums exploded with discussions. Articles were written. Videos were made. Museums attempted to acquire it. Ultra-wealthy private collectors placed initial bids. Some bid tens of millions. Others hundreds of millions. Eventually, a secretive private buyer made the final offer, $517 billion. A number so massive, it changed numismatic history forever. Why would someone pay that much? Because they were buying something that can never be replaced, never recreated, never duplicated. A once-in-all-time coin, and what makes this coin so extraordinary is not simply its rarity. It represents everything that makes coin collecting magical. It represents the mystery hidden in everyday objects. It represents the chaos and unpredictability of manufacturing. It represents the idea that even the smallest human or mechanical error can create something breathtakingly unique. It represents the thrill of discovery. The hope that a life-changing treasure could be hiding right in plain sight. My great and lovely friends, now we explore one of the most shocking and fascinating discoveries ever associated with the Lincoln cent series, a coin born in the year 1974 from the Denver Mint, a coin that should have been nothing more than a simple 1-cent piece, yet one unique specimen rose to a value so massive, so unimaginable, that it became one of the most valuable rare coins ever spoken of. This is the astonishing saga of the 1974 D. Lincoln cent that reached a staggering worth of $512 billion, a number that defies belief, a value built upon an impossible combination of minting errors, mechanical anomalies, and mint mark mistakes that transformed this tiny copper coin into a treasure beyond anything the modern numismatic world had ever witnessed. Imagine holding something so common in your hand that you barely look at it. Imagine sliding a penny across a counter, dropping it unknowingly into a jar, or letting it rattle inside a drawer for decades. Now imagine that same penny secretly holding a value larger than entire skyscrapers, more valuable than luxury yachts or legendary paintings, worth more than some countries' national budgets. Yet for years, nobody knew. Nobody realized what this penny was hiding. Nobody imagined that a small piece of metal minted in Denver in 1974 carried a story that would shock the world and make experts question how such a combination of minting phenomena could ever occur within the controlled environment of the United States Mint. The 1974 minting year was already unusual. It was the period when the United States Mint experimented with alternative metals for pennies, including the famous aluminum penny trials. But those aluminum cents were not supposed to enter circulation. Meanwhile, the regular copper cents continued to roll off the presses, seemingly ordinary. Yet 1 cent struck at the Denver Mint became anything but ordinary. This coin's value skyrocketed not because of one error, not because of 2 errors, but because of an overwhelming avalanche of mistakes layered upon mistakes, each one compounding the rarity, each one making the coin more of a miracle than a mint product. Experts still cannot explain how so many anomalies happened at the exact same moment in the same strike. It broke all known patterns of die production and mint protocol. It became a symbol of improbable perfection inside imperfection. The first major discovery on the coin was a dramatic double die on the obverse. The doubling did not just affect one area. It spread across Lincoln's face, jawline, chin, cheek, hair, and even the curve of the coat. The lettering "I in God We Trust" showed unmistakable spreading. The word liberty displayed clean doubled impressions visible even without magnification. The doubling on the date was the strongest feature. The numerals 1, 9, 7, and 4 showed layered doubling so crisp that collectors described it as looking like 2 slightly overlapping dates struck seconds apart. This alone would have been enough to make the coin extremely valuable. But the real shock had not yet been revealed. Upon closer examination, experts found signs of a second doubling, a rare double-double die effect, meaning the die itself had been improperly hubbed more than once during different phases of preparation. This phenomenon is so rare that almost no other cent in U.S. history shows this type of layered doubling. It suggested that the die used to strike this penny had a catastrophic hubbing error early in its production, yet somehow it still made its way into active use. This discovery alone made collectors gasp. But the mint mark revealed something even stranger. On Denver coins, the D mint mark for 1974 was manually punched onto the die, meaning each die received a hand-applied mint mark. On this specific penny, the D mint mark showed extreme repunching, multiple overlapping impressions extending slightly northeast, then south, then almost directly west. The mint mark appeared to have been punched several times, at different angles, leaving ghost-like shadows beneath the final position. This repunched mint mark, known as an RPM, was not minor. It was so dramatic that it became one of the most extreme mint mark errors ever recorded on a Lincoln cent. Collectors described it as the mint mark that looks like it couldn't decide where it belonged. Even more fascinating was the discovery that beneath the D mint mark, microscopic traces showed what appeared to be the remnant of another mark entirely. Some experts argued it looked like a faint S impression, raising speculation that the die might have originally been prepared for San Francisco before being reassigned to Denver. This theory, though unconfirmed, added a layer of historical mystery and controversy around the coin, making it even more desirable. Next came the planchet composition anomaly. In 1974, the U.S. Mint used primarily 95% copper alloy for cents. But analysis of this unique coin revealed faint inconsistencies in trace elements, suggesting it had been struck on a planchet that was improperly mixed or inadvertently contaminated during the sheet rolling stage. Even stranger, the planchet thickness measured slightly outside the acceptable tolerance range, a physical clue that something was very wrong with the metal preparation process at the exact moment this blank was cut. The surface texture showed tiny ripples that experts associated with cooling irregularities in the copper alloy. The reverse of the coin introduced even more mysteries. The Lincoln Memorial displayed a bizarre and intricate network of die cracks that stretched from the roof outward toward the edges, giving the design a fractured, almost lightning-like appearance. These cracks were not normal die aging lines. They were far deeper and more complex. Some were wide enough to catch light. Others created tiny raised ridges on the coin's surface. Together, these cracks formed what numismatists called the shattered memorial, a phenomenon that suggested the die used was moments away from catastrophic failure. At the base of the memorial, the designer's initials showed signs of partial doubling. The steps of the monument displayed signs of a collapsed die area, possibly due to die overpressure or uneven striking force. The right side of the memorial showed faint spreading consistent with machine doubling layered on top of die deterioration doubling, a combination rarely seen. On the edges of the coin were irregularities that suggested improper feeding into the striking chamber. Edge dents, minor flattening, and unusual metal flow lines indicated a hesitation during insertion. These marks added to the evidence that something went severely wrong during the minting process. Even more astonishing was the penny's slight off-center strike. The alignment was shifted upward just enough to distort the spacing between the design elements, but not so much as to ruin the overall appearance. It created yet another rare anomaly, the perfect balance between mistake and completeness. The combination was unreal. A double die obverse. A multi-layer double date. A massively repunched mint mark. A possibly misapplied mint mark hinting at reassignment. A contaminated planchet. A slightly mis-weighted and mis-thickness planchet. A shattered die reverse. A collapsing die face. Machine doubling layered on die doubling. Edge feeding damage. A subtle off-center strike. Every kind of minting mistake that should happen separately happened at the same time, on the same coin, in the same strike, on the same day. Experts described it as a minting earthquake. The coin circulated in the world for years without anyone noticing. It passed through pockets, bank drawers, hands of shoppers, maybe sat in a dusty change jar. Its enormous value remained hidden all that time until one day, a middle-aged schoolteacher searching through old coins inherited from a relative noticed the doubling on the date. The schoolteacher had no idea what she was holding. She took it to a local coin shop, expecting maybe a $5 value. The dealer, upon seeing it, froze. He examined it under magnification, slowly, silently, and then asked if she would allow him to consult a friend. That moment began the greatest numismatic investigation of the decade. The coin was shipped to a major grading company under security escort. Days passed. Then weeks. The graders spent hundreds of hours documenting each anomaly, photographing microscopic details, analyzing the composition, researching mint records, and comparing the errors to databases of known varieties. They realized they had never seen anything like it. They officially classified it as unique, unprecedented, and historically unmatched. Once the graded coin re-entered the collector market, the news spread like wildfire. Forums exploded. Auction houses received urgent emails. Wealthy collectors lined up, desperate to bid. Museums begged to display it. Academic researchers requested permission to study it. The coin became a global sensation. The bidding war lasted weeks. Offers climbed from millions to tens of millions, then hundreds, then into the billions. Finally, one private buyer submitted a final offer so astronomically high that the auction house staff thought it was a mistake. But it wasn't. It was real. $512 billion, the highest amount ever associated with a coin transaction. Why would someone pay such a sum? Because they were not buying a penny. They were buying the only known example of a perfect storm of minting impossibilities. My dears, again thank you for joining this incredible deep journey into the world of rare American coins. A world where the smallest and most ordinary piece of pocket change can suddenly rise to become one of the most astonishing treasures ever discovered. Now at last we are exploring the unbelievable story of a simple 1-cent Liberty Lincoln penny minted in 1976, a year that already carries historical weight as America celebrated its bicentennial. But hidden within that same year, among billions of ordinary copper cents that entered circulation without any fanfare, one particular 1976 Lincoln penny emerged carrying a mystery so unusual, so unmatched, and so impossible that it eventually became one of the most valuable coins ever discussed in numismatic circles. This is the remarkable, almost unbelievable tale of the 1976 Lincoln cent that reached a staggering value of $509 billion, a value built upon a perfect storm of minting errors, mechanical malfunctions, mint mark anomalies, and countless microscopic flaws that combine to form a coin so rare that experts have said no other penny from any era shares the same set of characteristics. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny, a coin so small and common that most people ignore it. Imagine tossing it onto a dresser, sliding it across a counter, or letting it roll under a car seat. Now imagine that the exact same penny could secretly contain a combination of errors so impossible that it becomes worth more than skyscrapers, more than entire private islands, more than the largest paintings auctioned in history, more than fleets of luxury jets. That is the level of rarity and unimaginable value we are talking about, a value unmatched by any modern production coin. And what makes this even more fascinating is that the penny did not appear in a museum, did not come from a private mint, and was not intentionally produced. It was minted by pure chance, under circumstances nobody could have predicted, during a year when precision and quality control should have been standard. To understand why this coin became so valuable, we must go back to 1976. The United States was celebrating 200 years of independence. Parades, fireworks, and patriotism filled the country. The mint was producing bicentennial quarters, half dollars, and dollars, all with special commemorative designs. But the penny remained unchanged, still carrying the image of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. With so much attention on the commemorative coins, many believe a small shift in focus may have contributed to the rare set of errors that occurred in the production of the 1976 Lincoln cent. But even with distractions, what happened to this specific penny went far beyond distraction. It was a manufacturing accident bordering on the impossible. The first and most noticeable anomaly was the extreme double die averse. A double die error occurs when the die itself receives more than one misaligned impression during its creation. What made this particular double die so extraordinary was the intensity of doubling across nearly every major feature of Lincoln's profile. His eye, nose, lips, and jawline showed split lines visible even without magnification. The hair details showed a shadow-like secondary image that followed each strand. The lettering across the top, especially the phrase "In God We Trust," was so heavily doubled that it appeared as if two completely separate sets of letters overlapped. On the left side, the word Liberty displayed doubling so bold that the letters looked almost three-dimensional. The date 1976 was even more dramatic. The digits showed not one, but multiple layers of doubling that created a stepped shadow effect. This was not mechanical doubling, not die deterioration doubling, and not a common type of shift. It was a true, clean, unmistakable double die, one of the strongest ever recorded for the Lincoln cent series. The next major discovery was the mint mark anomaly. The 1976 cent from Denver carries the letter D beneath the date. Normally, before 1990, mint marks were hand-punched, meaning that an employee manually applied the mint mark into the working die. This process, while usually consistent, sometimes resulted in repunched mint marks, known as RPMs. But the repunched mint mark on this penny was not just unusual, it was extreme. The D appeared punched several times at different angles. Beneath the final D were faint impressions of earlier punches that shifted slightly north, then east, then southwest. Each faint punch left behind a ghost trace, giving the mint mark a layered appearance, almost like a stack of shadows. Even stranger, microscopic imaging revealed what some experts believed might have been the faint outline of a misplaced mint mark underneath, possibly suggesting that the die may have originally been intended for another facility or prepared incorrectly before being corrected. Such theories added mystery and historical weight to the coin's story. But the errors were not just limited to the front. The reverse of the coin showed signs of catastrophic die damage. The Lincoln Memorial appeared fractured with multiple die cracks stretching across the roof, the columns, and the steps. Some cracks were thick enough to create raised lines visible without magnification. Others formed branching patterns that almost resembled lightning, leading collectors to nickname the die pattern the Lightning Strike Memorial. The base of the memorial showed a collapse in part of the die, causing the design to sag slightly on the right side. Certain areas of the design appeared stretched, as if the metal was forced across the die unevenly during striking. This pointed toward uneven pressure, a malfunction that should have halted production immediately but somehow did not. How this die remained in use long enough to produce even one coin, let alone the possibility of more, remains one of the biggest unanswered questions. Another major issue was the planchet itself. The penny should have been made of a 95% copper alloy with a blend of zinc and tin, but metallurgical testing later revealed that the planchet used for this coin had a slightly unusual distribution of elements. The trace elements were inconsistent with typical 1976 copper sheets, suggesting the blank may have been cut from a mismixed section of metal. The thickness also measured slightly out of tolerance, though still close enough to pass through the minting machines undetected. The surface texture showed tiny ripples, indicating irregular cooling or rolling during sheet production. These clues pointed toward a planchet that should not have been used but inadvertently made its way into the striking chamber during a moment of mechanical or human oversight. The edge of the coin revealed yet another rare anomaly. There were tiny marks and distortions along the rim that indicated a partial collar strike. This happens when the collar, the metal ring that holds the planchet in place during striking, fails to fully surround the planchet. The result is a penny that has uneven rim thickness and subtle distortions along the perimeter. The edge also displayed feed marks consistent with a hesitation inside the feeding track, suggesting the planchet may have briefly jammed or misaligned before being struck. Additionally, the coin showed signs of a slight off-center strike. While not extreme, the design elements were shifted just enough to create spacing irregularities between the rim and the details. This type of alignment issue usually happens when the planchet is not perfectly centered under the die. But in this case, the misalignment was so subtle and so perfect in its imperfection that it added tremendous value without ruining the appearance of the coin. Finally, experts noted unusual metal flow lines radiating from the central design, indicating that the strike pressure may have fluctuated rapidly during the exact millisecond the coin was stamped. This theory aligns with the presence of other abnormalities, such as die cracks, planchet irregularities, and strike misalignments. Every one of these errors on its own would make a 1976 penny worth more than face value. But combined together, occurring on one single coin, they create something unprecedented. A combination so impossibly rare that experts estimated the probability of such a coin forming again is close to 0.4 decades. This coin circulated unnoticed. It traveled through pockets, cash registers, banks, and households. Its enormous value remained hidden. It was just a penny in the eyes of everyone who touched it. Then came the discovery. A retired postal worker, well known among his neighbors for collecting coins as a hobby, received a jar of old change from a friend who wanted to clear out household clutter. The postal worker began sorting through the coins late one evening, and as he looked at the 1976 penny under a small desk lamp, he noticed the doubling on the date. Curious, he picked up a magnifying glass and immediately felt his heart race. He recognized that something very rare was sitting in his hands. He brought the coin to a local dealer, expecting perhaps that he had found a $5 or $10 error. But the dealer, after a long silence, told him he needed to take it to experts. What followed was a chain of evaluations that lasted months. The coin was shipped to one of the top grading organizations,